Good morning, afternoon, evening. This is Marco jumping in at the beginning of the episode that will cover Lesson 8 from A Course in Miracles. You're listening, of course, to Miracles in Manhattan. You got 2 lessons for the price of 1 2 weeks ago, so we took a week off to kind of keep it wavy, chill out, and give our listeners the chance to do the same. For when we do things like that, please do look for notices on Twitter at Wild Manhattan. You can also reach us, of course, at miraclesmanhattan@gmail.com. Why am I mentioning that? I'm mentioning that because the episode you're about to listen to is one of the last ones that Steph and I recorded a while back to give ourselves a bit of a cushion. This means that soon we will begin releasing episodes the same week we record them and can start taking your questions, comments, stuff like that on the air, and we really want to do that. So start thinking. Finally, before the end of this month, we will be doing a recap episode, and I'll be talking that up, but it'll be able to give everybody who's been listening a chance to kind of review in a fun kind of way, and it'll give that friend of yours who wants to listen but isn't listening because then they have to listen to a bunch of episodes and who wants to do that, it'd give them a point to just jump right on. So lots happening this month. So I hope you enjoy this episode. The sound quality is good. Finally, and keep living your okayest life. Bye now.
My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Dum dum dum.
Yeah, I'm talking about you mansplaining to me.
No, I wasn't. I've been in recording studios when I was doing voiceovers.
Okay,
And
that would have helped.
Oh, I have to qualify every piece of thing I say now?
I think so. Maybe not. Maybe that's really chauvinist of me to expect. It is, in fact. All right.
I have no idea if you're serious or not.
She said your mind or your brains is going to put you in your grave. Most therapists don't say things like that to their clients, but this one did. Since you have a lot of recording experience, you might note that your microphone is pointed a little bit all the way to the left of you. So it can record the radiator, but so yeah, just say anything you want.
Okay. Well, not anything apparently.
Yeah, right. Anything.
Considering myself smart and 10 years of therapy, something was missing.
So I want to. All right. So we're gonna go for lesson 8. Is that right?
Yes. Lesson 8 of A Course in Miracles.
Lesson 8. Okay.
This is how it goes.
Okay.
My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Dum dum dum. I think I do that every time.
You do.
Because it's like they're so short, and then and then it's like, oh,
I get that.
You open up the box, and here we go. So what's your first reaction to that?
Funny because it won't be. I just don't want this to go off. It won't be in this recording, but we were just talking a bunch about future events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just now, and so I agree definitely with that in principle. Although my first reaction, because of right now, is that my mind can also be caught up in the future as much.
Well, but the way I heard what you said was that you said this seems to be how all my most successful dates go, which is past thoughts, because you're assessing what's going to happen in the future based on your thoughts about the past.
That's fair. Yeah. God damn it. Okay. That's
Should
fine.
we start again?
No. People understand.
Okay.
People know what that was.
Okay, so while you're doing that, I'll describe what we're supposed to be doing here for this lesson.
And I do have another half of that response, so I'll hit you with that more. Which is that, yeah. I've been also ruminating on the past a lot this last 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So lesson 8. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Now, this is some of the text under the lesson. The purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize when it is not really thinking at all. While thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. Recognizing that your mind has been merely blank, rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas, is the first step to opening the way to vision. So we're building on lesson 7, which was I see only the past. This is how we actually do it. This is how we practice believing or understanding that when we think we're thinking, we're not really thinking at all, because none of that is truth.
I get that.
So the exercises for today should be done with eyes closed. This is because you actually cannot see anything, and it is easier to recognize that no matter how vividly you may picture a thought, you are not seeing anything. Okay, so I know, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so lesson 8, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Close your eyes.
They are.
With as little investment as possible, search your mind for a minute, merely noting the thoughts you find. Name each one by the central theme and pass on to the next. So you can say to yourself, with your eyes closed, I seem to be thinking about Tyler. I seem to be thinking about my car that needs fixing. I seem to be thinking about how I'm angry right now.
Ex-wife, bonsai trays, cyberpunk, vampire, and hungry.
Okay, and then you say, but my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. That's it. This can be done 4 or 5 times during the day unless you find it irritates you. If you find it, trying 3 or 4 times is sufficient. So now that's it.
Okay, there was something in there that that I didn't quite catch.
Mm-hmm.
Note each thought. Can you read the second to last sentence, I think?
Name each thought by the central theme and pass on to the next. So that was just the example. So it could be a person, an object, an emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the central figure or theme. That's all, like exactly what you did. So that's it. We're just practicing observing our thoughts and telling ourselves that these are just past thoughts. They're not truth.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. All right, because obviously they're past as opposed to truth.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is an exercise to be done while driving exclusively.
Because the lesson has a little further explanation. The mind's preoccupation with the past is the cause of the misconception about time from which your seeing suffers. Your mind cannot grasp the present, which is the only time there is. So we can't grasp, it's difficult for us to stay in the present moment, so we grasp for the past.
Because your mind, that part?
Because we can't, it says here your mind cannot grasp the present. So really, I interpret that as saying it's very difficult for us to stay present.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's
so
what
it sort of defaults to the past as an easier place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I get that.
But the past is just nonsense, just thoughts and not true perception. It's not.
Right, right.
And so this is just a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Notice your thoughts and remind yourself that, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Look at that.
God damn it. Sorry, listeners. Team. All right. That's okay. And just note that for now.
Yeah.
All
so let me read something from the text, which, if anyone remembers, is the theoretical underpinnings of this whole shebang. So I'm going to read from page 248, the top of page 248, verse 2, I guess. It says, each one, so each person, peoples the world with figures from their individual past. And it is because of this that private worlds do differ.
Okay.
Yeah. So it goes on to say the figures that we see were never real, for they're made up of reactions to other people, and they don't include the other person's reactions to us.
All right. Okay. Because when we think of someone, that person is not reacting to us because they are an imagination.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
And we don't know what they think about us or
Right.
what their experience is. And then at the bottom of page 248, it's, I guess, verse 6, line 5. I guess it's kind of like a Bible. I guess that's how it's set up. It says, in your madness.
Love it.
Yeah. In your madness, you overlook reality completely. I know, it's kind of harsh, right? I mean,
yeah, it reminds me actually of the Mukonon, which is
does it?
Yeah, which is like a sort of seminal Buddhist koan text.
Yeah.
Sort of thought experiments to ultimately liberate the mind. That all kind of end with a poem that both insults the reader
Yeah.
and the people in the story that was told.
Yeah.
So it's like, this master was an idiot. You're a fool for reading this book, and go fuck yourself.
Yeah, right.
The Gateless Gate. I encourage everyone to read it. It's the best.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, because I feel like, well, okay, look, I mean, I'm not overlooking reality completely. You know, I'm doing well. I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing better. Like, give me a break here.
Right.
But anyway, I
in the madness that you have come to call reality,
yeah.
you know, through all these years.
So right. So in your mad,
let me just
yeah,
stop.
Go ahead.
I think that's kind of important, I guess, because the more I think about it, because having a couple of times come to those moments where I think about, you know, what my status quo for what, you know, what's ordinary. Shit, let me try to re-say this. There have been a couple of times in my life where I've stopped and been forced to say, the way I'm living is different from the way everybody around me is living. What's going on? You know, my mind is doing something different. And so I think, you know, it's natural for people to believe that their mental processes, what goes on in their heads, is reality. And this is just, once again, one of those books that's really asking you to suspend disbelief and just say, no, that's not, for the minute. That's what I'm taking.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what the exercises are about. It's like little by little, we practice.
Right.
Yeah, just suspend disbelief. Just understand it might be uncomfortable. That's why they say don't do it like all day, every day. Like don't, if it irritates you, just cut back a little. Just do it 3 or 4 times. Just practice, because there's step by step we get better.
Totally.
And then we'll have the evidence as time goes on. But it's interesting what you said just there. That reminds me of really the beginning of my dedication to spiritual practice.
Spiritualist practice?
Yeah,
okay.
Spiritualist. Because I'd gone through my second divorce, or I was in the middle of it, and you know, I'd been 10 years in therapy, and I was very clever. I was doing well in a career, you know, successfully immigrated to this country, but I wasn't having peaceful relationships, you know? I was like, and so my mind, whatever was going on in my mind, was not good enough. It wasn't working to make me happy and peaceful. So, you know, I turned to spirituality in earnest, and then everything got better. So, you know, all this stuff, this is the truth here, you know, all those thoughts that I was having and analyzing and trying to figure everything out. Yeah, it helped to put things in perspective and in like a linear order, so I could kind of see why I was reacting this or that way. But it explained things, but it didn't make me deeply happy.
Sure. Would you say that was your relationships with people you were intimate with, or most of your relationships were not making you happy?
Most of them, yeah. I mean, it's much more intense with romantic relationships, and it becomes clearer faster, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all of them.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you took a moment and what was for you what was the thing that set it off and said, you know, now is the moment that I'm gonna stop and reevaluate?
Well, I was asked that at the time when I began my classes, and all I could say was, it just feels like the time. So it was some spirit, a moment of grace or whatever, but 2 divorces,
Right.
considering myself smart, and 10 years of therapy.
Right.
Something was missing.
So I once had a therapist that spoke these words to me. She didn't say your intellect. She didn't say your brains. She said something like that. So she said something like this. She said, your mind or your brains is going to put you in your grave. Most therapists don't say things like that to their clients, but this one did. And she's right. Clever people in therapy. I find that therapy can be a really enjoyable experience, and the cleverer I am in it, the less productive it can be. But I get that. Okay, so for you it was like a second divorce, and that I totally get that. I interacted with a person I met online who said something kind of well. She's like, I'm not opposed to marriage, but I've been divorced once, and I'm not trying to do it again, or I'm not trying to count, add those up or collect those. Okay, got it. I wonder. So there's a previous podcast in which I asked you, this is a while back.
You mean a previous episode of our
Yeah, exactly. Of this of Miracles in Manhattan. Whoa. Sorry, I just rustled my chair. I asked you, is this a book for people who've been wounded? And I understand why I asked, and it sounded kind of maybe cruel at the time, but I think I know why I asked you that now, which is, for me, I only got to a place where, so I was practicing Zen and doing this and that for many years, and but it wasn't until I had like a medical crisis that I had to look at things differently. So that was my breaking point, I guess.
Why did you have to look at things differently?
Because I would die if I kept behaving and thinking in the same way.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. So your thinking was motivating your behavior or guiding your behavior, and you had to change that because, you were going to die.
Going to die, or even just live. Or, I had also, like, my life was not, I had let my life turn into something that I had not set out for it to be. And I'm not saying I didn't score the job I wanted. I'm saying that I went to school for poetry and spent, nearly a decade becoming a really good cook, chef person. But I didn't really want to do that. And I never really questioned that, except to say that, except when I was like, meh, this is what it is. And so I had a very high tolerance of, like, shit needed to go really bad for me to
change.
Yeah, or to want to change, consider it. So I wonder, so I asked you at the time, is this for people who've been wounded? Because what would motivate a person to question their own thoughts in this way?
Yeah, right. Well, I'd love to hear from our listeners what has motivated them to consider changing their thoughts.
No, yeah, totally.
Or consider that their thoughts may not be real, or consider any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. And it doesn't even need, it can be a story, but curiosity is a fine answer too, because whatever lives behind curiosity is a narrative that is probably core to a person's life, I would think.
Yeah. I know Byron Katie, she tells the story of the cockroach. She was so depressed that she was lying on the floor next to the bed. She couldn't even get in the bed. She was so depressed. And a cockroach ran over her foot, and she felt some kind of revulsion or whatever. And then she suddenly realized if she changed her thought, then she wasn't feeling that way.
If she
changed her thoughts about the cockroach, yeah.
Oh, about the cockroach.
Yeah, about the cockroach, yeah. And then she realized, oh, my thoughts are powerful. Oh, they're making my reality. Yeah. I mean, you should probably look it up and hear how she describes the story, but just suffice to say, it was just a moment where she thought differently about a cockroach.
Right. No, I'm intimate with that right now. I mean, I think I just came out of what feels like like a 10-day depression
Oh.
jag.
Ooh.
Not the worst that it's been, but not the best either. And I did a lot of not living in the past, living in a movie of the past and a future that could come out of it. So rehearsing scenes of like what I would write to friends who I'm no longer friends with. Planning what it would look like if I showed up on my ex's door or something like that.
Ay.
Besides the feeling of handcuffs on me.
Oh my God, yeah, that's a bad neighborhood, man.
It's a really bad neighborhood, dude.
That's not good. You don't want to be there in your thoughts like that.
No, and I don't want to set too high. Like I don't want to make this such a set the
bar.
level, the bar. Exactly. There's an expression in English we use for most listeners because you don't have to be at that level where you're like, for this to matter, I guess. But yeah, this is just the right lesson to hear today.
There we go. There we go.
So,
but this applies. Yeah, this applies to all kinds of things because I think when we're thinking about the past, then we have expectations of others because we expect them to behave in alignment or consistently with our memories of them or our
right.
Thoughts about them, or even sometimes thoughts we have about ourselves that has nothing to do with them. We apply rules and conventions to people. He should do this. She should do that. They should say this. And that's all based on the past.
Because they were there and maybe. So in a world in which there was a past moment you're thinking about.
Yeah.
That you and, let's lower the bar, a waitress or a waiter, maybe that's too low. Anyway, two people, you were there with someone in a moment and you assumed that you write the script for what they were thinking.
Yeah, exactly. You write the script based on what they did before, but yeah, you're living in the past.
It's hard not to write the script sometimes.
It's so hard, yeah, it's so hard.
You know what a consistent thing I'm starting to realize why dating sites are sort of a touchstone, and for me in this podcast, is because it's like whether it's all that great or not, it doesn't matter. And whether it's genuine doesn't really matter all that much, but it's this forum where people are putting out there these incredibly intimate things about themselves.
Information.
Yeah, well, so not just information, but even their imagination of what they want, right?
Ooh,
so somebody writes, you are the person for me if, and I read this one a lot, you're nice to waiters. Right? Now, yikes. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen people be like dick to wait staff and stuff, but not like habitually. And the fact that a lot of people, I guess, meet up with a lot of people who can't manage that social situation is interesting.
That is a really interesting thing. I hear that it's everywhere. How did that become a thing? It's even in a song, isn't it? In the Bare Naked Ladies song? Yeah, it's in a Bare Naked Ladies song.
I wouldn't know. I've only seen them 3 times live in concert.
Really? You should know then.
I don't.
Gotta find that song. But anyway, it's really, really a cultural.
The waiter-waitress thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's a person in my family who I'm thinking of who is older than me by over a decade. Who's that person who you dread going to dinner with them because it's gonna be something.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I'll get I'm an ex-chef and I may go so far as to say if somebody asks me, how was it?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, a lot depends on a lot, but if I'm truthful, I might be like, yeah, it was all right. This was kind of undercooked or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what motivates me to say something like that, really. But maybe
they asked.
They did ask, but they didn't really ask.
Right.
But then again, so we're playing out this script, and sometimes it gets kind of annoying to be in that script, and so you bring it to the real, and I guess in the best possible world, they tell the chef and that person, learns how to cook a fucking Brussels sprout, you know?
Right. Now, how is this related?
No, we wandered a bit.
No,
so.
but if we're trying to, as you said, if we bring it to the real, if we're trying to live in the present reality, then we would say it was undercooked, and we'd say that with compassion,
of course,
and kindness, and just reality, as opposed to like judgment. Because if we said it with contempt, it would be based on the past. Right? It would be based on our thoughts of other experiences, of other people, and how they couldn't cook, or how our husband like annoyed us because he always burned the freaking Brussels, whatever it was.
Or how much it cost to buy that meal, and how many hours of work I did to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if we let that all go and just say it was undercooked, then maybe if it's said in that neutral or even kind way, but not condescending, maybe then it would get back to the chef, and things would improve in the universe, you know, in that small way. I mean, this is how I suppose we reach the next dimension together.
Look, I mean, as having been that cook sometimes and having gotten that feedback, not that I listened every time, there's times where it's been helpful. So there's worlds in which it can exist. And I'm not going to keep us in this part of the discussion at 27 minutes 50 seconds, but
that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to live in a kind, compassionate, serene,
and
profoundly
real,
fulfilling reality. Okay, should we wind this up, or are we still
we can wind it up. Let me ask you a question, because I need a piece of guidance, I guess. Maybe it happens when you read more of the book, of each chapter, but like, are you meant to be left with a sense of frustration with each lesson? And what I mean by that is, it doesn't present the why you should do this or what to expect will happen because you've done this, and is it building? Is it how should you approach it?
Yeah, well, maybe we can read more of the text, more of the underpinnings, maybe for that. But you're supposed to be getting used to this new way of perceiving.
Okay.
So that you're not so beholden to your thoughts.
Interesting.
At this point, that's what we're doing.
Interesting.
And learning that we're creating our reality by projecting the past onto things, and that's not reality.
Right.
So we're practicing dissolving that illusion.
Okay.
That's all we're doing. We're just practicing.
Right. That's really interesting. Okay. You know what I'd love to hear from listeners? If you have experience reading this book and applying these principles in your day-to-day life, of course, we would love to hear about how that's going. But also, I'd be interested to hear about if you are undertaking Course in Miracles and you are in some form of long-term relationship with somebody, because I'd be curious to find out what people's experiences are if they're practicing this and their partner isn't. Are there people out there who are embarking on this with a partner? How does, do they feel, what's that like?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Tell me all about that. Give me a book to write. So, I mean, that's a great chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. All right.
Lots of love.
Lots of love.